So today I'm going to be talking about the psychology of security. I later thought I might want to call this the social engineering for good, but it's too late for that now, so I thought I'd just throw that in there. And a lot of the talks have been about AI so far. There's no AI in this talk. The only part that AI played in it is it actually made the slides and wrote the talk, so so please enjoy. I didn't realize I am also the only thing holding you between dinner, but I brought in some cookies if you guys get hungry along the way. All right, a little bit about me. So I'm married for 14 years. I have 4 kids. I've been 15 plus years in the information security field. Previously worked for Adobe, Intermountain Health, Protiviti, Arizona NPR, PBS, and Security Metrics. I'm currently the Executive Director, Head of IT and Security at Omni, a JP Morgan company. That is a mouthful. I apologize. I didn't choose the title or the company name, but I do embrace it. I've spoken at OAuth's Global Cloud Security Alliance and Cybercraft, and I've published articles for RSA, Security Magazine, and Stay Safe Online. And my claim to fame is I wrote and produced a series of security awareness videos. I open sourced them and gave them to CISA for distribution rights, and now they're popularly used by state, federal, large companies, and SMBs across the nation. You can find those on Stay Safe Online or on YouTube. So let's zoom way out here. And I don't mean to insult anyone's intelligence for those who work in the information security field by saying this, but I want to categorize security risk into 2 buckets in the world of risk. And those of you who have made risk matrices, I know you're going to be totally insulted by this, but just bear with me. We have technology risk. Now, technology risk is addressed by the individuals who work primarily with the technology and actually implement the technology, I mean. So specifically, like we're talking engineers, information security team themselves, IT, those are the individuals that would help address technology risk. And then there is human risk, which is what we're going to spend the majority of the time here. Now, if you Google human risk problems or human security risk problems, you're going to find across the board that there's tons of articles that call it human error. And there will be like the breaches caused by human error, the top 10 or top 15, top 20. Personally, in my opinion, I think human error is redundant. It's like saying, can I have a Big Mac with meat, please? Or can I go skiing with snow? It's just redundant. Human error is humans are error. So we all make mistakes all the time, and therefore this problem of human risk is perpetual. It will exist in perpetuity. And so human errors are synonymous. It's redundant. And so that's why I just call it human risk rather than human error. So let's talk about what is human risk. So again, let's zoom way out here and ask ourselves, like, is human risk simply defined as humans doing dumb things? Well, yes, you could sum it up to that. But let's be more kind to the human race, to ourselves, and not assume that everyone are idiots. Let's understand the human condition or the human mind. This is done through the study of psychology. So to decrease human risk, we have to understand the human mind. We have to study psychology. It's what our adversaries are frankly doing, is they're trying to understand how they can be able to attack humans and take advantage of their vulnerabilities. So the definition of psychology is the scientific study of the human mind and its functions, especially those affecting behavior in a given context. The emphasis here, behavior in a given context. When we think about security risk, it's their behaviors that cause human security risk. So some examples of data breaches in human risk. In 2018, Strathmore College accidentally published 300 private students' records publicly. Now, there could have been some technology controls that could have prevented that, such as data loss prevention or certain access controls. But in this case, it was simply just a human maybe putting too many people on a CC line, or it even could have just been making the permissions to everyone. Something as simple as that. 2017, Equifax fails to apply patches due to engineering apathy towards patching. Now, if you actually go and read the articles, at least the news articles, they make it sound like it's a technology risk. But if you start reading between the lines and you really study this, It actually came down to they knew the vulnerabilities existed, and it's not that they didn't have systems in place to patch it, it's that they just felt that it wasn't important. And so ultimately it was a human risk in this regard. Uber attacker pretended to be an IT employee and then compromised credentials, so in other words they were social engineered. And then Whitehead Nursing took home an unencrypted laptop which was later stolen with a number of personal sensitive information on that laptop. So data breaches and human risk. So this is me summarizing 4 different studies that I read on this topic, and so I'm really just watering this down here. But across the board, and I think we've all seen this in the marketing materials where the percentages are all over the board, what causes vulnerabilities. And I've seen some where it's like 80% caused by AppSec vulnerabilities or 90% caused by human error vulnerabilities. We'll throw that out the window for a second because 80 plus 90 does not equal 100. But in the studies that I read, summarizing, 48% of breaches are caused by technology risk, and then 52% of them are caused by human risk. Now, you might say, well, Isaac, isn't all technology created by humans, therefore all risk is human risk? And I would say, technically you're right, but if we're gonna go there, then we might as well zoom out further and say, well, God and the Big Bang created humans, so it's God and Big Bang's fault that human risk exists. So we're not gonna zoom out quite that far. We're going to categorize it at least into technology and human risk. So this 52% number is actually being conservative. In most of the studies that I read, 52% was the lowest of them. The highest among them was 80%. So this is me leaning towards the conservative end that breaches are caused by human risk. So this is really based on some research, and if I'm sure all of you are very familiar with security questionnaires. I don't think that there are any questions in a questionnaire that talk about what is your human risk, because you just don't know how to ask those questions. They might ask, like, do you do annual security awareness training? And the answer is, I mean, everyone does and should be doing that. But, that's the most that we might touch upon that. And so even our customers who are sending these questionnaires aren't thinking about this 52% of risk, again, being conservative. So when we think about technology risk, historically, we think about this stack and all the things that we need to be able to do to implement defense in depth. But our adversaries are very much saying that humans are actually implementing this entire stack. And so the return on investment for an attacker to be able to attack a technology stack is actually much lower. It's more difficult to be able to attack a technology stack. They first have to scan the network, find the open ports, determine if there are vulnerabilities in place, something that's unpatched. So a lot more effort. Obviously, we're seeing that statistic again, that 52%, upwards of 80%. We're seeing a lot of emphasis on the human risk side. And so humans are always unpatched, they're emotional, and they're vulnerable. So how do we decrease human risk? Again, I'm just really boiling this down here just to some really simple phraseology here, but that is really human risk is increased by apathy towards security or ignorance about security. So therefore the opposite of that, to decrease human risk, we have to get people enthusiastic and we have to make them aware. So these are the two that we really want to foster, these type of behaviors. So if we go back to our definition of psychology, it's about the behaviors of the individuals based on their experiences and the study of their human mind. So we have to make these behaviors at least 52% stronger, likely more, in order to be able to overcome that human risk. So the two ways that we do this, we create opportunities for awareness through constant engagement, and then we foster enthusiasm by removing pain points. And this is cyclical. So as we do one, it feeds into the other, which feeds into the other. And so as we create awareness, it creates enthusiasm. Enthusiasm creates more awareness, which creates more enthusiasm. So I'm going to talk about that and some of the experiences that I've had in my career and my team has been able to implement that we've seen some success in that regard. So awareness through constant engagement. Again, boiling down 3 different studies here, but 3 different studies show how much was human risk, they called it human error, was reduced by different approaches to training. Annual training, it was reduced by about 5%. Periodic training was 15%, and constant engagement was upwards of 50% of the risk reduced. So obviously we want to focus on constant engagement, but then the question is what actually is constant engagement? And I'll tell you now, it doesn't mean that we're always in the face of the users. Nobody has time for the security team in that regard. So what constant engagement is and isn't, and I just want to be clear about this so that you guys don't walk out of the room and you're like, okay, Isaac's going to start talking about security awareness training and security awareness month. I'm not going to talk about those things. Those things are important. They are part of constant engagement, but they are not the only things that we can do. Maybe this is a platform for this type of thing, but an unpopular opinion, I'm personally not a big fan of Security Awareness Month. The reason being is it's 1 month and it's not constant. And the only people who care about it are the security professionals. I've never had once someone working in sales come to me and tell me, happy Security Awareness Month, Isaac. It just doesn't happen. We have other awareness initiatives, for example, like Black History Month. Everyone can get on board with that because it impacts everyone in some way, or people actually want to be on board with that type of thing. If you think about the Ice Bucket Challenge with ALS, I think if security awareness had started that, I don't think it would have trended. And so I think Security Awareness Month is a thing, but if I was in charge of a budget for Security Awareness Month and someone had $100,000 or $10, I would say it's going to be a better ROI to spread that money out over the year instead of emphasizing it all into 1 month. So again, these have values, but they're not the silver bullet we think they are. So what constant engagement is not security is in the spotlight. We have to make the business is in the spotlight. Otherwise, security won't even exist. The security team wouldn't exist without the business. And after I made this slide and I presented, I was like, this actually looks really creepy. So security really is meant to be in the background and the business to be spotlighted. And so as we put security in the background and it's constantly on people's minds, even their subconscious without them even knowing it, that's how we constantly engage individuals. So some ways that we've been able to do that at my current company, Omni, is we have a channel that's called Ask InfoSec, and we've had this around for a few years now, and it's just a channel where people can just come and report anything security related. And I'm sure that you all have like distribution lists or maybe channels similar to this, but the way that we emphasize this is we literally use this as the one-stop shop for everything. So sales has a questionnaire for us to fill out. We say, go ask InfoSec. If a security engineer says, oh, this SaaS tool is blocking me from deploying my PR, we say, go to Ask InfoSec. So everything channels back to there, so everyone really understands that this is the channel where you engage with the security team. Furthermore, and I'll actually talk a little bit more about this channel actually in a moment, so let me hold on that thought. But there's ways that we have just really emphasized on this, and it's a pretty active channel where people are consistently reporting things, and we actually reward people for reporting things, which I'll get to in a moment. We try to participate in like company brown bags. So I put the embellishment allowed here just to give you an example. About a year ago, I gave a brown bag at our company, and I literally titled the name of the brown bag, How Omni Nearly Got Hacked by Russia Twice. And that is not entirely true. It's kind of like a movie when you say, this is based on a true story. There were facts in there, but the idea was to get people interested and start thinking about security. So for example, I watched Oppenheimer recently. After the movie, I probably spent an hour just researching, and then I went down a rabbit hole just understanding more about World War II, and wasn't even on Oppenheimer anymore. That was the objective, is to get people interested and start thinking about this. And so really what happened was we just had an investor who had a BEC and then emailed us, and then another instance was we had a customer who logged in from an iPad in Russia. But the way I presented it made everyone super interested. Everybody who didn't work in security thought, oh, it's fascinating, the security team's protecting us from Russia. And I had a number of individuals, non-security, approach me after, like, oh, I'm so glad we have you guys. I'm like, oh, you're welcome. But it's, we got people starting to think about security, and that was what was important, and that was the objective, to have that constant engagement. Speakers in a previous company engaged an FBI agent and just said, hey, will you come speak to us? And if you have any cybersecurity examples, that would be great. But The idea being, let's get them there, let's get people even to start thinking about cybersecurity, and the emphasis was on not come here and a government individual come talk about security. It was come here an FBI agent talk about their time in the field and trying to sell it in that way. We do personal security tips during like all hands meetings. We try to make this as brief as possible. We're talking like 30 seconds or less and very non-technical. We've had individuals on our team, in fact, Dan Hamilton sitting, I don't see him anymore, but he was sitting in here, but he talked about how to like change your Facebook settings so that your privacy settings are configured so that you're not giving all of your private information to Facebook. Just simple things like that, where it's like, it has nothing to do with the company, but it gets people thinking about security and actually caring about it. And then swag and recognition I'll actually cover here in a moment. So this is some of the branding that we have. We have Omni Security Ambassador and Omni Security Champion. So we worked with our design team to come up with these logos. And Omni Security Ambassador, if you can see my computer here, it's mandatory. I asked the IT team to stick all of these stickers on everyone's laptops. I don't say give them a sticker and it's their choice. Like they have no choice. They get the sticker. They're a security ambassador by default. The idea being is that when people engage us on Ask InfoSec or report something kind of suspicious, for example, just it was a couple weeks ago, we had someone say, hey, I noticed that this particular tool was storing customer data and I don't think it's approved to store customer data. And they reported that. We nominate them as a security ambassador on a quarterly basis. We actually then award them with gift cards to say thank you for being a security ambassador. They don't even know it's coming. We just give it to them to continue to reinforce that. And then Omni Security Champions is in each of the engineering squads, we have a security champion where it's a designation. We give them a nice backpack saying like, hey, you're a security champion. Like this is not just like the security team assigning you something, like this is actually your responsibility and we want to award you for it and recognize you for it and give you training because you may have no knowledge of security at all. And so we also do quarterly trainings for our security champions. So hopefully that gives you an idea of like ways to constantly engage. I think Security Awareness Month, annual security awareness training, phishing, those are all things we can do, but those tend to be the defaults. I think there's many other creative ways, and I'd love to hear if anyone has any other ways that they've been able to engage without necessarily being feeling like they have to be in the spotlight, but rather in the background. The second point here is enthusiasm, which is, and the way we do that is by removing pain. So this is some patio furniture sitting outside our office in Cottonwood Heights. One day I went out to go sit at this patio furniture and there was a long, I guess, bike lock looped around all the chairs and you couldn't pull the chairs out. And it was the only table that I could sit at the time, and so I actually just ended up climbing over the arms to sit in the chair. And then to get out, I had to then stand up on the chair to get out. It doesn't show it in this picture, they removed the lock later, but you know, it caused, really security caused unnecessary pain. And we're gonna come back to this riveting story about patio furniture in just a moment. So the American Psychological Association said this about pain. I'm going to read this word for it because it really drives home the point. Some individuals interpret pain as a signal to restrict physical movement or activity to rest the body. Individuals with pain may avoid any activity that could potentially induce pain. While this may be an effective strategy to cope with acute pain in the longer term, such behaviors lead to decreased mobility, causing patients to decline into inactivity, depression, and disability. Studies have shown that fear of pain may be more disabling than pain itself. So I'm going to take some liberties here. I'm going to change the wording. Some individuals interpret the pain security causes them as a signal to restrict movement or activity. Individuals with security pain may avoid any security activity that could potentially induce pain. So take, for example, someone gets a phishing email, they remembered the security team did that really annoying thing where they had to reset my password for like the 6th time. Subconsciously, you want to avoid pain. You may not even be thinking about that training about not clicking that phishing email because your brain is literally wired to avoid pain. While this may be an effective strategy to cope with security pain, in the longer term, such behaviors lead to decreased security, causing users to decline into slowed business activity, depressed profits, and disabled business movement. Studies have shown that fear of security pain may be more disabling than the security pain itself. So if there's anything that I think you should take away from this today, it's really this, that causing security pain actually increases human risk. And so we must avoid security pain. So the amygdala, which I think it was James earlier mentioned, is really it's the pleasure center. So we can't social engineer for good if we're causing people pain. So I think this is a classic example of where I think the approach was incorrect. I apologize if anyone here is from 23andMe, I'll give 23andMe the benefit of the doubt that the journalists may have twisted their words so that this title became clickbait. Maybe this isn't exactly what happened. But let's just assume for a moment that 23andMe do truly blame the users for their breach. And they say they don't use secure passwords, and therefore it's their fault, it's not our fault. There was such an opportunity for awareness here to be able to remove the pain that they were feeling. One, the users were feeling pain because they had to, because one, they were breached, their private information was stolen. And then two, they experienced pain because then they were getting the blame. They were being told. So do you think that after this announcement made or these type of articles came out that the users then said, yes, it is our fault and they did better and they enforced better security? Very likely not. No, in fact, because of the pain and the breach, they probably are distancing themselves from 23andMe and very likely security. What they could have done instead was to explain, hey, we're actually going to start enforcing 2FA for all of our accounts. It's going to be annoying. It might be painful for some of you, but let's help you understand why we are making this change. We made a mistake by not enforcing this for all accounts in the past. Passwords are difficult to remember, so users commonly create common passwords. We all do it, and we're all human. Really just emphasizing some empathy and understanding. And that really brings me to my next point here, and that is that, I know what you're thinking is that sometimes we have no choice but to cause pain. Security controls cause inconvenience for people, and inconvenience often results in emotional or psychological pain, which people then want to distance themselves from. And that is an opportunity for, us to really kind of either, one, educate the user why the control exists, or two, question why the control exists in the first place. And we obviously can't just remove the technology altogether, as it states in this meme. But one example is early on at my time at Omni, I had a sales employee approach me and ask, hey, the MFA on the demo environment is actually causing some friction in the sales process. And my first response in my head was, too bad, we're going to continue to enforce it. But then I stopped, and my second response was, I actually just need to sit and explain why MFA is important. But then I thought, third time, actually, what are we even protecting in the demo environment? There's no real data in there. There's no real customer names. And so I confirmed that, and there was no reason actually to even keep that security friction point on there. From that point on, we had the sales team on our team, and they were all about security and continually reporting things on Ask InfoSec. Our human security risk plummeted with the sales team because they were all about security because we were trying to reduce friction in their process. But in those cases where we can't remove the security control, that's an opportunity for us to teach a non-security professional why the security control exists. Teach them like a 5-year-old, don't be condescending, but really just massage the pain and give them, it's really an opportunity for us to be able to, we can't exactly remove the pain, but we can try to alleviate it by helping them understand why it exists in the first place. So really we're moving from a model where we're saying, here's general security awareness training where the users have to have things, and that's important, but I think the elevation or the graduation of that is security professionals become teachers and start teaching people why it exists. So for example, a security engineer might find a vulnerability, say, well, I find risks, but I don't actually fix the problems, and they throw the JIRA ticket over the fence to the engineer to fix. That's not the right approach. The right approach was, let me actually walk this over the fence and go hold the engineer's hand to understand why this is a vulnerability so that we can be able to fix it and understand it together. And at Omni, as we've done that, we've even come to discover in a conversation with the engineer that it's actually not a vulnerability, and we come to agree that it doesn't need to be fixed, leading to a more productive product lifecycle, but also reducing our human risk because we've come as partners rather than an individual who just throws something over the fence. So this is our mission statement at Omni, and that is to deliver stronger, smarter security solutions, provide peace of mind for the venture capital ecosystem, and enable the success of our customers, employees, and investors. But for those who know how to read it between lines, our mission statement serves the purpose of promoting awareness and removing pain so that we can decrease human risk, thereby protecting and enabling the business. So really just summing it up here, decreasing human risk. These are some of the things that, more technical technology risk and how we fix them. But human, home, and social engineering, the common answer is provide more security awareness training. But I'd like to promote that we foster more awareness and enthusiasm, foster awareness through constant engagement and enthusiasm through teaching and also massaging pain, or teaching people why the control exists and when we can't, trying to massage that pain. So if someone starts complaining about your security program or security control, take the opportunity to create awareness and then foster that enthusiasm. Really drop everything because your security risk is about to increase by about 50% if that individual is not engaged and you don't find an opportunity to teach them or try to remove that pain or make them aware. And that is, oh, never mind. So do not use FUD in this cycle at all. It's not approachable, and in fact, FUD promotes just more pain and fear, and the amygdala will not like it. So just don't do it. Just don't do FUD. Just in conclusion here, you think about our security programs. Really, our security program, I think traditionally we say our security program protects the business. So the business is the chocolate, and we put a wrapper around it. But I'd like to present it in a bit more colorful way, and that is, let's try to sell security to individuals instead of just saying, like, we don't only put a wrapper around it, but we put a nice wrapper that people can understand and can relate to and are appealed by. So humans are not the weakest link. Humans are the strongest defense layer if we approach them right. Any questions? Okay, thanks everyone.